Hi everyone, it's time for my May reading wrap-up. I had a great month. I read some fantastic books and I can't wait to share them all with you. The first book I read was technically a reread, but I absolutely loved it and hadn't read it since high school, so my memory of it was really faded. And that is The Great and Terrible Beauty by Libba Bray. This is a historical young adult novel with a lot of fantasy elements. It's about a young teenage girl who grew up in India, and when her mother suddenly dies, she's sent off to a boarding school in England, and from there she learns that she has some magical powers and she makes this group of friends, and it's just such a fantastic book. It's got elements of boarding school, and while she makes this group of friends, they're almost more of a Mean Girls kind of group, and I love the characters, I love the setting. It's just so well done, so well written. It's technically the beginning of a series, but I've never actually gone back and read the last two books. I just think that this is such an amazing book. It stands great on its own, even though it's actually quite an old book in terms of YA. It came out like 10 plus years ago. I still think it holds up so well and just highly recommend it. I absolutely enjoyed this reread. I ended up giving it 5 stars, bumping it up from the 4 stars I originally rated it on Goodreads from memory, because I just think this book is brilliant. Absolutely love it. Another reread this month was The Happiness Project by Gretchen and Rubin, which I reread as an audiobook. I have a lot of problems with this book. I love the general idea of doing a happiness project, kind of doing small changes in your life to just kind of, self-improve or make your life a little bit easier, but I have so many personal issues with the author and how she goes about her project, and it's just problematic. It's an older book, so I think a lot of people know about it by now. It's kind of good, but I don't know. I probably won't reread it again. I was pretty disappointed, gave it about 3 stars. I also participated in the book Buddyathon, which I did with Felicia from her channel, Little Prairie Library, and I had so much fun buddy reading with her, getting a chance to chat offline, and we just talked books and life, and I just really enjoyed it. Her channel is fantastic and I will link it down below. That being said, I was a terrible readathon buddy. I basically DNF'd everything I put on my TBR except for one book. She picked out a book for me to read and that ended up being awesome. Yeah, I didn't end up reading anything else from my TBR that I put up earlier this month. But I did read and finish and love Paris Letters by Janice Macleod, and this is all a memoir about a young woman who basically scrimped and saved in order to basically move from North America over to Europe, particularly to Paris. And when she moved there, she ended up falling in love with a butcher and financed her life through selling postcards on Etsy, and it's just such a sweet, cute book. I absolutely love this book. It's the perfect summer read and I highly, highly recommend it. It was an awesome pick from Felicia. Now to switch genres, I also read Broken Harbour by Tana. This is the 4th book in her Dublin Murder Squad series. And I didn't love book 3 as much, so it took me a little while to get back into the series, but I'm so glad I came back to it because Broken Harbour was a fantastic story. Tana French is an amazing writer in terms of writing fascinating characters that you just want to read more about. This book basically follows a detective who is on the case of a family who is all being murdered in their home. And they had a seemingly perfect life at one point. They were rich and had this beautiful home, but things started to fall apart. And this book is really an analysis of what went wrong and what really happened on the night when everyone was murdered. And like I said, it's just a great book focusing on characters. She always brings in a lot of psychology and really looking at motives. I was just completely enthralled by the story. I love the side plots with the detective's sister, and the whole thing was so well done. If you're a fan of Tana French, this is absolutely one to pick up. I really enjoyed it and look forward to reading the last published book, Secret Place, hopefully in the next couple months. And I definitely am excited for her new book coming out in September. So love this book, love this author, and cannot recommend this series enough. I also read a nonfiction book called Overwhelmed, Work, Love, and Play When No One Has the Time by Brigid, Schulte. And I thought this book was just okay. It really focuses on our culture of busyness. I think a lot of other books talk about the same topics but do a better job. So I thought this book was just okay, so wouldn't really recommend it. I also read the graphic memoir Something Bora by Knisley, and I'm a huge fan of her as an author. This is all about her experiences getting engaged and planning her wedding. She's a bit of an unconventional, reluctant bride who had to come to terms first with having a traditional marriage and wedding. But once she kind of gets through her own analysis of that, most of the chapters are basically her going through the different details of the wedding, from the dress to the flowers to the music. Personally, it's been 5 years since I've actually planned my own wedding, and I'm no longer particularly interested in the wedding details. But had I read this book years ago when I was engaged, or even before then, I think I would have given this book 5 stars. But despite not being particularly interested in the topic, I still think Knisley did an amazing job writing about it. She always brings a lot of emotions and depth to whatever topic she's talking about. And she did such a great job. The writing is great. The cartoons are adorable, all in color, and she includes photographs. So if you're a fan of her as a memoirist, whether or not you are a big wedding person, I definitely think it's still worth picking up because she just tells a really great story. And I just thought it was fantastic. I also read a contemporary story called On the Island by Tracey Garvis-Graves. And this is a bit of a romance slash suspense, all about a woman who is crash landed on an island with a 17-year-old boy that she's supposed to tutor for the summer. And the suspense part is the fact that they are stuck there for a very long time and are forced to survive. And the romance comes in because as the only 2 people on this island, they begin to form a bit of a romantic bond, and it's a bit taboo at the beginning because he's only 17 when they crash on the island. But the story is incredibly addicting. I read it in a single day, which is super uncommon for me, but I could not put the book down. I needed to know what happened next, and I just thought it was so good, just addicting. I did have some problems with her writing. From the very first sentence, I wanted to add more punctuation to her writing, but otherwise the story itself was just so enamoring. It's a great book to read if you're in a reading slump or just need something really fun, addicting. I read it over the course of a few airplane rides, and it was the perfect choice for that. Now, because I loved Tracey Garvis' story so much, I ended up picking up another novel by her as an audiobook. And that was Covet, which is about a woman who is in an unhappy marriage and basically forms a potential friendship slash possible romantic relationship with this hunky police officer. And the story is told from her perspective as well as both her husband and this other man. And I just think she does such a great job telling a story and just pulling in the reader. I thought that all 3 perspectives were really realistic and interesting. The narration on the audiobook was fantastic. They had a male and a female narrator, which I really appreciated. And overall, it was really good. My only complaint would be that the kind of side characters outside of those 3 people were a bit stereotypical and kind of had stereotypical problems, but for the most part, the actual story itself was really good. I'm very impressed by her as a storyteller, and I definitely want to pick up more books by her. Now, those are only 8 books. I actually read 9 this month, but I'm going to hold off telling you about the last book because that book is Cream of the Crop by Clayton, which is a romance novelist I have really fallen in love with. But this is actually an advanced copy that I got through Netgalley, and it's not coming out till July, so I'm going to wait to tell you more about it a little closer to that date. That is everything I read in the month of May. I would recommend so many of the books I mentioned. Please let me know down below if you've read any of these, or if you have recommendations based off the books that I mentioned. Let me know what the best book you read in May was, and I'll talk to you again soon. Okay, bye.